Welcome, lords and ladies, back to the realm. I am your host, the Goat King, and today we discuss cults from the Dark Archive. Recently, we discussed secret societies, and you may be wondering, Goat, aren't secret societies and cults the same thing? To this I clarify, while secret societies and cults often overlap, they are not the same thing. While a secret society is, as the name implies, a secret, cults are under no such definitional restriction. A cult is an explicitly religious organization that may or may not be secretive. But now we find ourselves asking, then what is the difference between a cult and an organized religion? The simple answer is acceptance. Specifically, societal acceptance. Any religion rejected by its community is a cult. There are the obvious ones. Cults to the outer gods, cults to the destroyer gods, not typically worshipping the end of the world so much as trying to earn their god's favor before the inevitable end, and of course, cults to fiendish devils. But again, I stress, cultism is not defined by the religion, but by the society around it. In Cheliax, you can find cults to good-aligned gods. And then there are cults not rejected due to a misalignment of good and evil, but rather because their beliefs are strange compared to typical polytheist religion. Worship of the hero gods, or specifically, the potential of mortals to become godlike, is often viewed with suspicion. So too are the ways of the mystery cults, who worship concepts such as intoxication. Of course, the stigma against cults is sometimes justified. Whether a cult is manipulating society in an attempt to gain acceptance, or regularly kidnapping people as sacrifices or to play host to their god reborn. Yes, I did say host. Perhaps I should explain that in greater detail. Living vessel is a rare archetype, usually caused by cult rituals on often unwilling victims. By taking the second-level dedication feat, your body becomes host to a demon, a fae, an aberration, or outer entity. As the host, you will have to spend some time assuaging your entity's needs or face increasingly dire punishment. If left ignored too long, the entity will require unrestricted use of your body for a time as payment. As dire as this fate sounds, it does come with some benefits. If you should be reduced to 0 hit points, the entity may take control for 1 minute, preventing your death and exacting vengeance on those who risked its vessel. The 4th level archetype feat is Entity's Strike. This causes you to grow some feature related to your entity with which you can make unarmed attacks. Tap Vitality at level 6 allows you to, as a single action, once per hour, tap into your entity and regain 4 times your level in hit points. The cost you pay for this ability is the entity's personality bleeding into your own until you spend some time to assuage their needs. The next 3 feats are all available at level 8 and are specific to your kind of entity. Exude Abyssal Corruption is a single-action activity available to demon vessels that coats you and your melee weapons in poison. Phase Trickery, you guessed it, available to Fey vessels, is a once-per-hour 2-action activity with the effects of Mirror Image. The last one, Warped Constriction, available to aberrations or those with an outer entity, is a single action you can use on an enemy you have grabbed or restrained. This action causes bludgeoning and mental damage. The capstone feat for this archetype becomes available at 16th level. Vessel's form allows you to once per day take on a form more true to your entity. You grow to be large, gain a fly speed, 40 temporary hit points, and gain bonuses to attacks and damage. As well, if you have Entity Strike, it upgrades the damage die on that. And, should your entity need to take over your body to protect you from death, some of the bonuses you get for your attack rolls and damage rolls go up as well. I imagine a relationship like that requires a lot of trust. Most cultists don't end up with such entanglements, however. Clerics, champions, and oracles within a cult may find their unorthodox worship has given them access to Apocryphal domain spells. The air domain offers Wind Whispers. With 1 hour of casting, you spread a rumor on the winds. Very useful for intrigue in a densely populated area. The Ambition domain offers Hollow Heart. With 2 actions, you stoke a target's ego to the point where it views all others with suspicion, treating it as having no allies. I see this spell as particularly useful against groups of enemies with a heavily teamwork-based combat style, isolating the healer, for instance. Shaking Confidence of the Confidence domain is a reaction spell that allows you to cause misfortune on an enemy who critically fails an attack roll, perception check, or skill check. Isolation of the Darkness domain is also very useful against team-based enemy groups. However, it's more effective when cast on a team's front man before their allies get a chance to buff them with support spells. You see, Isolation makes the target invisible to their allies without affecting their enemies. From the Death domain, we have Euphoric Renewal. This spell lasts 10 minutes and gives you a few bonuses every time you regain consciousness from dying. You are given a free action to stand, a +1 on saves, and 8 temporary hit points. The +1 and temporary hit points both last for 1 minute. I could see this being useful for a few interesting character builds. The Fate domain brings us String of Fate. You cast this spell as a single action with a range of 60 feet. This connects you and one ally and can be sustained for 1 minute. If both you and your ally are forced to attempt a save against the same effect, and one of you critically fails, and the other succeeds, you can both treat it as a normal failure. Maybe I'm missing something, but this feels both overly niche and very weak. Not only compared to the other Apocryphal domain spells, but to all domain spells. While the rarity of an option is not meant to denote power, it does display how difficult it is to obtain. This just isn't worth it in my opinion. In comparison, Cinder Gaze from the Fire domain is delightfully useful and flavorful. You spend a minute gleaning secrets of the future from the flickering flames of a fire and gain one random benefit that must be used within 10 minutes. Terrible Danger provides a +2 bonus on your next initiative roll. New Life will negate a small amount of damage the next time you're attacked. Vivid Insight gives you Fortune next time you attempt a Recall Knowledge check. And Good Fortune gives you Fortune on your next saving throw. Frenzied Revelry from the Indulgence domain gives you and your allies a bonus against mental effects. If one of you critically succeeds a save against a mental effect, they gain a +1 to attacks and damage rolls for 1 round. While the added bonus from critically succeeding is a little far off to occur frequently, this spell still serves to protect your party from those who would favor attacking the mind. Wordsmith from the Knowledge domain allows you to translate a text into any language you know, as long as the original document was written by one author in only one language. This is a very cool spell whose utility will depend on your game master and campaign. From the Might domain, we have Victory Cry. As a reaction, when an ally critically succeeds a melee strike against an enemy, you add 1d6 sonic damage to their attack, after they doubled their normal damage. In addition, the ally may immediately attempt to shove the creature without a free hand. Their weapon's item bonus is added to their attempt to shove. This spell is an easy pick unless your party is heavily ranged and spellcasty. You should see plenty of opportunities to put this magic to use. Weaponized Secret from the Secrecy domain is a weird one. This spell allows you to steal your enemy's secrets and use them to inflict significant mental damage as a reaction, should they attack you. While you don't ever learn the secret you've stolen, a weak-willed enemy will take persistent mental damage from the fear that you have. The Travel domain brings us Inevitable Destination. This spell lasts for 2 rounds, preventing your target from moving away from you and sometimes even forcing them to advance. While this spell feels a bit limited for an advanced domain spell, it could be decently useful against a ranged opponent or someone you're simply trying to catch. In fact, in the right campaign, this could be a very useful spell. Purifying Veil from the Water domain, I must admit, confuses me. Is this meant to be a support spell? It provides the target with concealment. Or is it supposed to be an offensive spell? It makes everyone concealed to the target and causes good damage if they leave. My only real answer is it's both, kinda. The damage it does isn't particularly a lot unless the target has a weakness to good damage, and it isn't anything against a good or neutral target. This spell sacrifices raw potential power for its flexibility, and you know what? I like that. Before we wrap up, I want to mention the file on cults also comes with 6 new rituals. I don't have the time to dive into them right now, but they are available on the archives of Nethys and in the Dark Archive, so make sure to check them out. Thank you again for visiting the realm. I've been your host, the Goat King, and as always, travel with loyal companions.